Hey folks, and welcome to Skeptic Voices, the brainstorm production that spends more time on getting to know the people in our community and less time on the issues. As skeptics, we spend more of our time learning, debating, and educating than we do on other pursuits, but we're all still people with families, jobs, home lives, and other things we value. I want to spend a little bit of time each month with one of my favorite members of the skeptic community and get to know them on a more personal level, instead of just debating ideas. I'll interview a different person each month and hopefully learn something about them that I didn't know before. This month's interview was with X, host of the Utah Outcasts, and someone I truly consider a friend. It was a great chat and I really enjoyed talking to him. In some ways, X and I share similar stories about going from the edge of being a shitlord to being pretty firmly on the SJW side of things. But he grew up in a different situation than I did, and it was really cool to learn about his life. So here it is, my interview with X.
Together, put our dreams through the shredder. Let's toast, 'cause things got...
So I guess to start off, we might as well say, okay, who are you and where would people know you from?
Hey, I'm X. That's the name I go by on the internet, but my real name is Christopher, and I pretty much hate that name growing up, especially after becoming an atheist. And, you know, you find out the meaning of names and stuff, and that means someone who carries Christ in their heart. And I'm like, oh, God, really? Thanks, Mom and Dad. And my middle name is not too much better either. It's a biblical name as well, but I'll leave that out here because I don't want people to know too much about me. You can find me on Utah Outcasts. I produce, host, and pretty much do all the legwork on that one. For some reason, I'm a masochist. It would be a sadist because I enjoy the pummeling that I get every week when it comes to doing shows. You know all too well how that is, Corey.
Yeah, that's right. The work that you put in and get nothing out of.
Though I will say, and I don't want to shit on anybody in particular, but I pick up podcasts every once in a while from people that I see on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. And I'm like, well, let me check out their podcast. And like I said, I'm not trying to shit on them, but it's just like, oh, honey, like I could teach you some stuff. I feel like we should have some sort of outreach program for people that want to do podcasts, you know, right. Just give them a little bit of a heads up. Like, hey, you know, if you run it through this filter, it'll sound better. If you cut like right here, it'll sound even better. You know, It's just kind of a way.
That's the sort of thing that people got to learn on their own eventually, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I went back and listened to the first podcast I ever recorded, which was a show on the website I own called Watch, Play, Read. It's a geek news website. It's still up, but I don't do anything there except for, you know, treat it as a turnkey. I just run things there. And the podcast that I originally did was called the Red Light Roundtable, and we went about 130, 150 episodes or something. And I went back and listened to the first one and how nervous I was to turn on the mic and how the mixing was terrible and how I thought, oh, I'll be so edgy and put in some, what the hell was it? White Zombie here. And, you know, I'll go, nice. I'll say some stupid stuff for a commercial. Oh, let's do a skit. And it's just like, I'm glad I learned.
Right. Yeah. Because some of that stuff is not necessary. It just loads the show down.
Or when people cut away, like in the middle of somebody talking to do something, it's like, oh, man, like, wow, give them a chance to brace themselves before you do that, guys.
Right.
But yeah, been doing the podcasting thing on and off for about 9 years now. And I'm glad to have some success with the Utah Outcast because it's getting all the attention from the right people, I think. So
yeah, you're making some waves anyway.
Man, I tell you what, I kind of figured there would be a Utah chapter of the Proud Boys because this place is white as fuck. And
right.
That's not saying you have to be white to be in the Proud Boys, but it certainly doesn't hurt. It's a gateway group to white nationalism. And I pissed them off good this past week. And I was like, I'm not even trying. Like, if you really want me to try to get you mad, I can try to get you mad. And the funny thing is all the comments I'm getting from these guys are like, oh, you beta cuck. And, you know, I bet you take IV suppositories, which is not how IVs work, of soy paste and stuff like that, trying to say that I'm like more feminine and estrogen laced because, you know, I tend to care about people. And it's like, man, you don't even know me. You don't go to the gym with me. It's like you probably would never know that I ran marathons and stuff like that. It's like, shut the hell up, guys. You don't even know.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I mean, the information about the Proud Boys is all pretty obvious. Like, as a group, they are who they are, and they're shitty people. So
yeah, it's like no surprise that these people are acting this way. It's like, yeah, this is YouTube personified.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess rather than sticking too much to the issues like the Proud Boys and shit, why don't what do you do outside of podcasting? Do you have hobbies that don't take all of your time like that?
I used to be a pretty avid gamer, but then once I had kids, that kind of disappeared. So I get to play with them every once in a while, and it's nice to do that. I've got an Xbox One, and I play it maybe 2 hours a week if I'm lucky. And so beyond that, I was an amateur bodybuilder for a while. And I did, like I was saying, I used to run a lot. I used to do marathons and crap like that. Like there was one year, I think I did 9 or 10 events, and you start to chase that. And after a while, it was all fun and games until I injured myself. And I'm like, well, I need to take a break from that for a while. So, yeah. I mean, beyond that, I'm a dad with kids and married life, and you're almost too busy to do anything else once you add podcasting to it. It's like, oh, well, there goes all of my free time. You know?
Yeah, like I used to go to concerts whenever I could, but I haven't been to one in years now.
And I miss going to concerts. Who was the last one that I saw? Oh, I went to go see Coheed and Cambria this year, only because that's my favorite band. I've got a giant keyword tattoo on my shoulder, so
that's awesome.
Big fan of this. But I think we share some similar musical taste. If I remember, like we trade back and forth a group here and there. So it's always nice to meet fellow metalheads out there, especially ones that are recovering from being shitlords. You know?
Yeah, that's right. Because actually, a lot of the music that I used to really enjoy, I have to take a step back from now because they're shitty people too. Like even I love Hatebreed, but they have some really bad themes in there.
I used to fucking love Pantera.
Oh yeah.
And the Dimebag was all right until he got murdered. And then you have Phil, who is just a racist piece of shit. You know, it's like, God damn it. And like, I even have in the basement somewhere and all my old you go to a concert and you buy some shit just because you want to say that you were there. And I've got this bandana that had like the Pantera snake on it, and it's on a rebel flag. And I'm like, why do I still have this? Like, if anybody saw me having this right now, they'd be like, yo, you fucking racist. I'm like, no, it's from my youth, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I just don't want to throw it out because I have memories and whatnot.
I know, right?
Yeah. Well, I still have all the old CDs for Pantera, but it's just, what do you do?
Yeah, becoming an SJW, to use their pejorative against us, it changes things that you have to. It's hard for you to distance yourself, the artist, from the art, and sometimes you have to, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be able to pay attention to much. And I know people out there would say, "Well, there's plenty of art done by all of these other people. You should pay attention to that." But I didn't grow up with that stuff, and so it's just like it's kind of hard for you to get away from listening to like Cemetery Gates and stuff like that. It's like some of these really good anthems of my youth, and I was just like, oh man, why does this guy got to be so shitty?
Yeah, that's right. And actually, some of the themes in Pantera's music weren't too bad. I mean, like
Vulgar Display of Power.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Oh, lost you there for a second, Corey.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I lost you there for a sec, but you're back now. But yeah, you were saying Vulgar Display of Power.
Vulgar Display of Power was a pretty good album, but it's just like Great Southern Trendkill. Like I can't even bring myself to go listen to it anymore. I'm like, I don't know. And I mean, sure, the problem is when you get music that's mainly, powered and supplied by like angry white dudes, like you tend to to attract that crowd.
Yeah, that's right. I remember I think it's the lead singer of Seven Dust.
Oh God, love him.
Yeah, and he was like the only black singer in metal for a long time. Yeah, and some of the things I read about him saying like that some of the pushback he got against him, like, that this is a white genre of music predominantly, right?
Be like, but it wouldn't exist without black people coming up with rock and roll to begin with, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. Seven Dust is a group like that. You have God Forbid, which is really good. Black lead singer in that one. Skunk and Nancy is a girl vocalist metal group. Well, I guess they wouldn't be metal anymore, but let's see. Who else do you have? You have Animals as Leaders, like the melodic metal, but it's not vocal or anything. But god damn, those guys are good.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see people of color getting representation in these kind of things too. It's too bad that there are people out there seriously that would say, no, I'm never going to listen to this or go to that because it's a black guy. It's just
right, eh?
Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty
There's too much good shit out there for you just to. But then there's a lot of stuff you have problems with that. Like, I'm a huge movie guy, especially all the comic book movies right now. I grew up as a comic book geek, so being able to see all these movies on the big screen and everything. And there's a bunch of movies out there being made by people that are being flagged for being like sexual assaulted.
Right.
Like they're doing all this horrible shit in Hollywood. And everybody kind of knew it's like one of the worst kept secrets of Hollywood. And it's like, yeah. I'm glad shit's finally happening for it. But at the same time, you're like, man, do I have to stop watching these things, or do I have to not be able to go back and see this thing because of what this person did? It falls back on the separating art from artist kind of thing once again.
Right. Hey, folks. Just want to make sure that you know that we had a bit of a glitch here. That's why there's a space in the conversation. Everything from here out should continue pretty good. We're talking about the art, separating the artist from the art, I guess.
Art from artist. And I'm sure there's old shows that you have of me out there. I've pulled all of the all of these shows that I used to do off, except for maybe a handful of them on YouTube. So if people really wanted to see how shitty I was as a person, they can go Google the Red Light Roundtable, and I'm sure it would pop up somewhere on YouTube. But don't, because I mean that was from a time before I gave a shit about what other people thought of me and what I thought about other people. And right. So when you kind of have that, easygoing, no, I don't give a shit if I offend somebody or not attitude, it's like, it's kind of an asshole way of living life. And so
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I still have like a lot of friends that are kind of like that right now, that are like, they believe in the offense is always taken, never given mentality. And I think that that's too easy. It's too easy to just absolve yourself of responsibility that way.
Yeah, there's too many people out there that, I say a shitty thing and I don't care if somebody gets hurt, but it's just as easy to go, maybe I shouldn't say the shitty thing,
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
We should talk to everybody else as if we're equals instead of, I'm going to say purposely inflammatory shit and then, not care about the consequences for it. And not to circle back to a topic before, but the whole United States of America, First Amendment, free speech bullshit, and everything like that. And we've said on our show multiple times that free speech is something that we will not try to stop. But the thing is, free speech has consequences.
Yeah.
And so when I made that video about the Proud Boys, I knew making it that potentially piss somebody off, and they would come back and start shitting on me.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is I know how to cut all that shit out so I don't get cyberbullied, but it's interesting. It's like, I don't understand why people would seek to offend anybody. And so.
Yeah. I think there's different types of offense. All right. Like there's the Christian who gets outraged over red cups, and there's the black person who gets offended by the N-word. Like, these are not the same thing, right?
Yeah, they're very, very different ballparks. I don't see how people don't understand that,
Yeah.
And bringing up Josh Feuerstein, my God, that man is the prime example of like a Christian persecution complex. And it's amazing that these people are the same ones saying, oh, you liberal snowflakes, you libtard snowflakes and all this other stuff. And it's like, I get mad when you call somebody the N-word, or I get mad if you call me like somebody a fag or something like that. And I hate using that word, but I hear it sometimes from people that catch my show. They're like, oh yeah, you guys are a bunch of, and I'm like, oh great. That shows to me that you're an awesome person to talk to, you say. But at the same time, it's like, you guys are mad, like you said, about the red Solo cups. You're mad about a gay character on television. It's like, ooh, a big boogeyman gay guy. It's like, ooh. Just like,
yeah, that's right. It's crazy.
And it's like Kevin Smith says, he's like, he thinks that most people are afraid of gay folks because they are afraid that they might realize that dicks taste yummy or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Really they're secretly worried that dicks are delicious.
Yeah, there you go. I just remember when they were here in Park City doing the junket for Red State at the what that was, the Sundance Film Festival. They had the people from the Westboro Baptist Church across from them protesting, like with their stupid signs that they always have, and they threw a counter protest. Okay. And Kevin Smith's one of his friends that has done shows with them for the longest time had a sign that he held up behind him, and it said "Cock taste yummy" or something like that.
Nice.
And there's pictures of it floating out on the internet. People should check that out. It's funny as hell. But even Kevin Smith now, like nothing's wrong with him, but he's taking money from Weinstein. Like he would not have a career without Harvey Weinstein.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, God damn it. Like you really want to support the indie guys, but at the same, because Weinstein was good at supporting indie movie makers and stuff. But at the same time, it's like he profited off it. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's frustrating. Especially somebody like him who had like his hands in everything.
Yeah.
Like he was so influential that there's almost no movie that you can support. There's no actor that you can support. There's nothing you can do that didn't at some point feed his pocketbook.
Yeah. And so it just falls back on the having to separate things. And I know there's people out there that can't do that, but I refuse to cut out everything in my life, just because it might be somewhat problematic. I mean, there's people out there that think that, that's the only way to get to true equality and stuff. And it's like, no, you have to be able to accept art from controversial people. You have to be able, because that's what art is. It's supposed to invoke something in you. Like people that got mad about the artist, the sculptor guy that came up with the pissed Christ thing, where it was just like a crucifix suspended in a jar of urine kind of thing. It's
right.
like I could see why people would be pissed about that, not to use a pun, but at the same time, I think art like that should be able to exist. It's like if somebody made a giant mural of using their own feces, it's like, well, I don't like it, but whatever. You're doing your thing.
That's right. I'm not a fan of all art.
Neither am I.
Some of it's good. Some of it appeals. Some of it doesn't.
Yeah, I look at a Jackson Pollock painting and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, right. And apparently that's a big deal for a lot of people. So
yeah, people need to go see the Adam Ruins Everything about fine art, about how it's all like, it's not worth shit until the person dies, and it's people price setting and, using the buying and selling of art as like tax havens kind of thing. And it's like,
yeah,
that's some bullshit right there.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess, why don't you tell me a bit about growing up and maybe your family life and whatnot?
Well, let's see. I was born in 1980, so I'm on that zennial cusp thing where I had the analog childhood, but the digital adulthood kind of thing. Nice. And I was born in Texas, so if they ever secede, I'll be able to claim citizenship. I won't want to, but it's just always there. I was a military kid growing up, so I had a new home every about 2 or 3 years because the old man was this was still during the Cold War. And he was a science guy, so he was in the Air Force doing electronics and stuff like that. And when we moved to a new base, every single one of them that we moved to was that fell under the SAC, the Strategic Air Command. You might remember the old patch. It has the metal gauntlet with the red lightning bolts shooting out of it, and so
I think I've seen those.
And so most of those places were nuclear based, and I mean not like you had nuclear weapons stashed there, but like they would be providing support for stuff that falls underneath the nuclear programs. And so like as the Cold War was starting to draw down, they've had a whole bunch of bases they put on the closure lists. So we would move about every 2, like I said, 3 years. And so moving from place to place to place, and we spent most of our time in the Bible Belt in the South. The family was Southern Baptist growing up. Dad Dad was, at least. Mom was a Pentecostal. So we're talking about like the praying with snakes, tent revival kind of Pentecosts and stuff. And
nice.
Thankfully, never got into that stuff very much. But I did go to the Hellfire and Brimstone Baptist churches growing up. So it's always kind of interesting. And being a being a kid that was in the Air Force, you had to adapt to moving all the time, which is something I'm grateful for, because it made me realize what was important in life wasn't just like your friends and where you live and stuff like that. It's more about the connections that you make, and ideally the stuff that you take with you. I mean, I'm not a materialist at all, but at the same time, it's like I still have my old Nintendo. So,
right.
but when we moved from, let's see, where were we at the time? It doesn't matter. But we spent about 3 or 4 years in Germany when I was a kid. And that was a cool place to spend a bit of my childhood, especially because it was before the wall came down. And I remember we were there when President Reagan came for a visit, and there was all sorts of protests outside the base. This shit I didn't know about until I was older. Like, I could see videos of people getting sprayed down with fire hoses because of the East and the West to come back together. And just it's really crazy when you look at your childhood and find the shit that was going on that people shielded you from. And so, and then we came back to America and then bounced around the South a little bit more until we finally went to Idaho. And we went to a base, was in the middle of fucking nowhere in Idaho in the early 90s. And man, that place was a shithole. Like, literally from my backyard, I could walk to the west about 100 feet and be in the middle of the desert. And we're talking like arid plateau desert. So there's sagebrush, there's badgers, there's what are they called? Ground squirrels, snakes all over the place. And like you could get lost because there was 10 miles of that between you and the nearest town. So,
jeez.
They didn't need a fence. They just had a bunch of fucking desert. And so.
Right. Just go play in the desert.
We did quite often. You take your bike out there and you'd catch a goat head thorn every once in a while. And you're like, oh, now I got to walk home. This sucks. But I remember on occasion running over a snake or two on the way home just because it was crossing the sidewalk. Like, oh, shit, you know.
Right.
And then the old man, he retired from the Air Force like around 93, I think. And we tried to go back home to Arkansas. That's where the ancestral homeland is. And let me tell you, that place is a shithole. We tried to make it work out there, but this was like right around the time that like the IT boom was about to happen, where, you know, every business needed networks and they needed servers and everything. And so my old man got his degree in computer science when he was still in the military. So he tried to make that work in Arkansas. Unfortunately, nobody out there needed anything like that. So he landed a contract out here in Utah, and here I've been ever since. And so it's really interesting to come into this place like during junior high and live here since. I mean, it's my home now, but at the same time, it's like it felt so foreign when I first got here. Like from where I'm sitting in front of my computer right here, to my left, if you go about 3 miles, there's about a 2,000 foot like summit cliff, and it goes from north of me about 40 miles to south of me about 60 miles. And so it's just this ridge of mountains. It's just beautiful to look at. I mean, driving past it when you're first visiting here, you're like, whoa, it's so close to the mountains. And now that you live here, it's like, oh yeah, that's east.
Right.
It becomes background every once in a while. But
nice.
Let's see what else has been going on with me. I settled here, finished junior high. First day of junior high, I remember some kid in class, and I was in a rural part of Utah when I went to junior high and high school. Like literally, like I had to drive past like pastures and a whole bunch of cows and stuff going to school. And first day of school, a couple of kids were asking me, hey, you're new to the school. I'm like, yeah. They're like, are you Mormon? No. Well, then you're in the wrong religion. I'm like, oh, great. This is a preview of coming attractions. What it's like to live here, huh?
Right. And
that's how the teenage mind of Mormons works. But when they're adults, they're a lot more passive aggressive about it. And so,
of course, yeah.
It's a cool state to be in. I met my wife about 17 years ago. Been together for a long, long ass time. Like we had a long engagement before we finally got married. And then we had one kid, and we were happy about that, and we thought we were done. And then for some reason, you know how they say on Jurassic Park, life finds a way. That's kind of what happened with us. And instead of one, we ended up with two at that time. So I had twins, and so I've got I've got a gaggle of kids over at the house, and it's a lot of fun. It's great seeing their developing, growing minds. I've got my oldest is a book hound. She is reading. She's like, how old is she now? She's almost 9. Oh no, she is 9, and she's probably reading about 7 or 8 books at the same time, and one of them being The Hobbit. And I'm like, man, I don't remember reading that when I was that young. And she finished all 7 of the Harry Potter books. I bought her one for her birthday last year, and she finished it all before like April this year. And I was like, God damn, that's like 7 big ass books within.
That's
like,
pretty impressive.
Like, I can't even read that fast. Like, damn.
I have not read 7 books this year.
Yeah, it's because podcasting, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, it just ends up taking your whole life. Oh, and I just realized on video you're using a Blue Yeti also. Hey, how about
that? Yeah, I just got this actually.
Yay, it's a good mic. It's a great mic.
Yeah, I'm still working out my kinks with my system in my house and whatnot. But
I both decided to test run the home equipment. Yeah, this isn't where I'm not recording in my usual studio, which is just in the basement down here. Anyway, getting back to life story. She was a LDS girl when her mom got converted to the religion, because like it or not, they do have good social programs for people that are members. Like if you needed help with your rent or you needed help like feeding your family and stuff like that, they do great work if you're a member of the church and you're paying tithing kind of thing. And so,
of course,
I can understand the appeal behind that, but it's just like, she grew up Mormon, lived as a Mormon for a good chunk of her childhood until she got to be a certain age where she noticed the hypocrisy of a lot of people, where they would come to church on Sunday and pretend to be all pious and religious, and then on Monday they're smoking in the girls' room and gambling and shit like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I felt when I was younger too.
Go
ahead.
I was just going to ask, like, how your mom you said she was Pentecostal.
Mm-hmm.
How did that affect her moving to Utah?
We tried to find a church out here. When she married my dad, she moved all the way over to being Baptist, because that's just how you did things back then. You do what your husband said. And like considering my old man grew up in Arkansas, same as my mom grew up in Arkansas, when integration was just happening when they were like teenagers and stuff like that. And so
right.
It's like, I remember watching Forrest Gump with my dad, and he was talking about, you see this part right here where they're like throwing stuff at the kid trying to come to school. Like, I was one of those people in the crowd. I'm like, oh, Dad, don't be proud of that, man.
That's not okay.
He's like, no. I've grown since then. I'm like, whatever you say. Because I remember as a kid hearing all sorts of casual racism thrown about. Like the N-word wasn't something that I didn't not hear in my household.
Right.
Like, God, it's so. Just thinking about how I'm bringing my kids up compared to how I was brought up, and it's like, I could never imagine saying like racial slurs.
Right.
But like everybody would say, that was another time. I don't buy that excuse. But
it seems too easy, eh?
When we moved to Utah, we tried to find a church, and most of the churches that we went to when I was a kid, ended up being places where they didn't care if you came wearing like a t-shirt and like high tops and some jeans and stuff like that, as long as you were clean. And they wouldn't even care if you didn't come when you were clean or something like that. But when we moved here to Utah, we went to this Baptist church here, and it was like people dressing to the nines every Sunday.
Oh,
and
it's like, right?
Yeah, like full suits and stuff. And we're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so she tried to find a church out here, never quite found one. And so they both, my old man is a bit of a conundrum, because he brought me up watching like Carl Sagan's Cosmos and being science-minded and everything. And then at the same time, he won't deny that he's a Christian. It's like, how can you make those work? It's like,
right.
Like,
how does that work at all?
The first couple of books just right out the fucking window. It's like, you shouldn't be able to believe any of it if you can't believe the first book of it. It's just that I have a hard time with that one. But my mom's still a true believer. She posts stuff on Facebook every once in a while about angels and share this if you're praying for these people and stuff. And I'm just like, you just have to kind of go with it. I don't want to be an asshole to them about it, but
right.
But coming out
at the same time, what do you do?
Coming out atheist to them wasn't too bad. My mom just kind of put two and two together once she started figuring out some of the stuff I was posting. My old man's not on social media much at all. It wasn't until my grandma died this year where we went down for the funeral and we're having cigars and some single malt whiskey at her. It wasn't really a wake. We just kind of got together and had some food and some drinks. And we started philosophizing about things. And I was like, yeah, I'm an atheist. And my dad just like, huh, really? I expected pushback from it. And I'm like, but then again, from the same family, I got the pushback of, oh, you're still young. Things could change. God damn it. I'm 37. I'm not young. It's like the people that called Donald Trump Jr. like a kid because he was talking to the Russians. It's like, no, guys, no, they weren't kids. Like Roy Moore was a kid when he was doing that shit. It's like,
that's right. He was 32, right? Like that's an adult.
Yeah. You're responsible for your actions at that age,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So both of your parents are still alive then?
Yeah, they're both still alive, doing well. They both got, as interesting as it may be, I'm not a skinny person. I wouldn't say I'm rotund or anything, but I'm beefy. I've always had to wear the husky pants when I was a kid. And both my parents were quite overweight, and they both got like a gastric bypass earlier, like last year, and they both like, shed off all of this weight. So it's weird to see them like super skinny folks that I can actually pick up. And it's like, they're getting to that age, and they're 60 something now. And like, they're starting to do that whole old person shrinking thing. It's
yeah.
Where they almost,
yeah. Somehow all their joints have to bend so that they can exist.
And it's just funny that like you don't notice the problems that you have with your own lineage until you start like hitting your 30s and you start getting medical problems. And then your parents are like, oh yeah, we had that too. And it's like, you guys could have told me like, ahead of time so I know what to watch out for,
That's what the doctor means when he asks for family history.
Like, history of things, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool people. I mean, when you grow up as a military family that has to move a lot, like I was saying, I spent a lot of time with them. Like most of my childhood was with them. And so when we finally got here and I didn't leave the house until I was like 24, and because I was in college at the time. And when I finally left the house, I'm like, okay, that was like a good quarter of my life, like with them. And so it's like, we respect each other's boundaries very fucking well because it's like,
that's cool.
We're not going to pester the other person to like, hey, you need to come over. Hey, you need to do this. Hey, I need you over here. It's like where I get it from the other side of the family, where it's like deeply involved on my wife's side of the family. But on my parents' side, they're just like, we're not doing anything this holiday. I'm like, okay, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, that's kind of how my parents are. Like, if I don't contact them, then we'll just never talk. So,
yeah,
which is fine. That's perfect.
Yeah, I'm very much a fan of the, if I don't contact you, that doesn't mean I'm mad at you. It just means that there's nothing going on.
Yeah, exactly.
I will talk to you. There's none of this obligatory, you have to call somebody every week to see how they're doing. I mean, probably my mom would like me to do that, but at the same time, it's like, what are we going to talk about? Like, I have no problem getting in front of a mic and talking for an hour and a half, but like, so what have you been up to? Like, oh, just being old. It's like, great.
That's not a great conversation. Yeah, shit. So how long have you been married?
Let's see. We got married in 2007, so this will be our 10-year anniversary here coming up here pretty soon.
Nice.
No big plans because we've got another vacation coming up in like sometime next year, and so we're throwing all the money at that. So
for sure. Yeah.
I'd like to do more stuff, but when you have children, you kind of have to put your own relationship on the side burner for a while because you don't really get to enjoy each other's company as much as you'd like to. And the job that I have, I have to work off shift because it just works easier when you have a parent at home at all times, especially like during the summertime. So
Yeah.
And we made a conscious decision when we first got together that if we have kids, we're not going to let other people raise them. We're not going to take them to daycare and stuff like that, because I think it's really important for, them to have that time, because it's fleeting. And now that now that they're like, Jesus, they're 8 and 6 and stuff like that, it's like, fuck, they're growing up so fast.
Yeah.
It really,
yeah.
When you've had that kid the first year and you're like, God, this has been the longest year ever, it just starts to blur past when you don't have to wipe asses anymore.
Yeah, that's right. My son is 14 now.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so basically he's like a whole human who can just almost take care of themselves in a lot of ways.
Entertain themselves. They don't need you unless it's money or food.
Yeah.
So, do you guys do a lot together? Do you hang out a lot? As much as...
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a really good relationship with my son. He'll ask me pretty regularly if we can just sit down and play video games together. I just sit there and watch him play, but
yeah, I've got that gene where that's okay. I don't mind sitting there watching people play video games. There's some people that can't handle that at all, but like I'm one of those weirdos that's watching Let's Plays on YouTube as well. So
yeah, I used to not like watching, but when it's him playing and he knows more about the games now than I do, so I'm more than willing to let him just play for an hour and a half or whatever, and I'll just chill out and make fun of him.
Yeah, my kids love like Minecraft and like the Lego games and stuff, and because they're still kids. But like if I was to put in like an arcade fighting game, like that was my jam when I was like from Street Fighter 2 on, like I was at fucking arcades. Throwing the quarter on the machine, like up until like Dance Dance Revolution came out. Then that became my jam as well. So I was an arcade nut. I used to love going to arcades. Can't find them as much anymore, which makes me a bit sad. But
yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
But I would love for them to take the shining to playing games like Blaze Blue or Guilty Gear and stuff like that, and then I just school their ass and that, be like, okay, you may be better at like Minecraft than me, but I'm always going to be able to kick your ass in Street Fighter.
Yeah. Sirik really likes to play like the first person shooters, and that's not my favorite. So if he insists that I play with him, then I always make him do all the work and I'll just follow along behind.
And so like I picked up this year, and that's a huge FPS from Blizzard. And for those that maybe don't know, I don't know about your audience, but it's a first person shooter, but it's surprisingly not violent. Like there's no blood, there's no gibs, there's no anything like there's no blood spray or anything like that. It's not like you're killing somebody. I just tell my kids they're being knocked down. So it's like a early trainer for FPSs, and I've got a couple that really like playing it, but I'm like, I've only got one Xbox. I'm not going to start getting like 3 or 4 in the house, and you limit the time on that stuff. And I hate to be the buzzkill parent, because I was brought up in the era of Nintendo, and my parents didn't care how much time I spent playing in front of it, because it kept me out of their hair. Right. And so with them, I'm like, no, you guys get electronics after you do this, this, and this, and then you have to you can only play for like an hour kind of thing. And it's like, I know they're going to be, when they get older, they're going to resent that. But at the same time, it's like, I'd rather go do something,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We actually have found that Sirik has a much better attitude in life if he only has like 2 or 3 hours of game time per day. Like if we haven't let him have too much, then he gets grumpy, and then you're fighting with him all the time.
It's the same way with my little ones right now. Like if I let them have their iPads for too long, and I'm like, God, what a first world thing we have nowadays. Like I didn't have growing up, and I hate to be the old man. Get off my lawn! I didn't have iPads growing up. Like, but we also had magazines, and you don't have those nowadays. So
that's right.
But like you can only let them hang on it for a little bit, otherwise they get to be very like I wouldn't say it programs them or anything like that. I'm not saying it's but it definitely changes the brain chemistry around, where they're just like, I don't want to listen to instruction. I want to do what I want. And it's like,
well, yeah, it's like they get in. Actually, Adam Ruins Everything just did a bit about video games, not video games, but like what do you call them? The VLTs.
Okay.
At casinos, the slot machines at casinos. and how people would get in the zone, right? And any interruption pisses them off and gets in their way because they're in the zone. And I think that it's something similar to that. Like that's that I'm in the middle of doing this thing, even if it's not, it's not programming them or anything, but they're doing their thing and you interrupt them and they get pissed off. And it's like, okay, well, let's limit the opportunities for that to be a thing then.
Yeah, we live fairly close to a couple of gambling places around here. There's places up in Idaho on the res that you can go to, but the Nevada's only like 2 hours away. Like I'm in the middle of like everything in northern Utah here. Like Idaho's an hour away, Nevada's 2 hours away. Like Wyoming's like an hour and a half away. It's like it. But if I wanted to go to Las Vegas, it's like 7 hours because you have to traverse the whole state. And I can't say anything about sizes of territories and stuff like that because you look at Saskatchewan and you're like, whoa, that's a big fucking piece of land, And
so it's pretty open and empty too. So
yeah, and could you just imagine having to traverse it longitudinally instead of latitudinally? And it's like, oh my god, that'd be a long fucking drive.
Yeah.
But like we do have gambling here, and when I hit 21, that was a fun thing to do. And when I wasn't wasting my own money, the parents would want to go gamble, and they developed a serious gambling problem. I'm not afraid to tell people about that because it was just watching my old man play hands at blackjack when we were in Vegas one time, like betting right? 500 a hand.
Whew.
And I'm like, holy shit. He's like, nope, you can't think of it as money. I'm like, but it's money, Dad. It's like,
you can't think of it as money. I don't know how else to think of it.
like you're betting, like at the time it was like, I really wanted a PS3 and I'm like, that's a PS3 that you're betting every time that you're playing, Dad.
Yeah,
what the hell?
Sure.
And I'm like, just give me one bet and just say you lost it and I'll be happy. But, I mean, gambling's not something that ever like stuck with me, but, do it every once in a while, but poker's fun. Only if you have like friends around. Playing with strangers, it's kind of, it's not very fun because there's some people that take it way too fucking seriously. And it's like, I do poker more as of a chance to, bullshit with people and have drinks and stuff, but
for sure.
Oh, well, some people that is their job, just like podcasting,
Yeah. That's the dream, isn't it? Podcasting for a job.
I keep hoping for it, but knowing what I make at my current job, it would have to be a pretty substantial podcast, or I'd have to have at least like 3 or 4 of them at that level to be making what the salary on a make is here. And I'm not hurting for money, but I'm not like top of the line money maker here in Utah or anything like that. But you have a very specific set of skills. Like I work on old like IBM and Unisys mainframes, and
neat.
And it's boring as shit, guys. Like when I go to work and I have my terminals up, like it's just logging into Windows, but I have emulators that bring up these mainframe screens. It's like watching the Matrix go by. It's like just like lines of code showing up on there, and like you learn how to read it. You're like, yeah, there's an error there. This person just signed in. It's weird how that becomes a skill after a while because it's not something they teach in college. So
right. It's something that you have to almost learn in the field type thing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. I got my original job as a help desk technician, and I thought it was going to be like, because I worked for AOL for about a year. I couldn't take any more than that because call center jobs are just shit. They're just absolute hell. How anybody stays in them longer than they have to, I will never know. But like I took this job because it paid a lot more than my previous one, and I was like, it said help desk, and I'm like, fuck, that means I'm going to be taking phone calls all day. I hate talking to people on the phone. It's so weird to be an extrovert podcaster. I mean, people would try to say that you're introverted because you don't want to talk to people, but like, no, I want to talk to people I want to talk to. I don't just want to be randomly contacted by people. And so like that ruined phones for me. So I thought going into this job was going to be that, but then they're like, oh, hey, you have some computer knowledge and you're pretty good at this. Let's start teaching you mainframe. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Right.
It's just funny working on these systems that have software that's easily like it. You watch the movie Hidden Figures, and they're working on the IBM stuff. And I'm like, I know exactly what they're talking about right there. And they're like, yeah, we need to learn Fortran. I'm like, yep, we still use programs that have that in there.
Oh,
and I was just like, I'm like, fuck,
that's crazy.
All of the world's like financial systems are run on old ass like programs and stuff. It's crazy, but it works. So I guess that's what they're going to continue to use.
Guess. Yeah, that's right. That's like, I was complaining this morning about, the banks taking a stat day to deposit checks and like you pay your credit card on Friday and it doesn't come through till Monday normally. Mm-hmm. And then if there's a stat, then it still doesn't come through until the next day. It just, it makes no sense to me, but apparently
because people like me got that day off, and we set up the computer system to not run any of that shit on the holiday.
Right.
So we can be like, okay, well, we'll just pick back up tomorrow. And so,
yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's just one of those things. It's yeah,
it's all run by computers, but it's run by computers that have other people attached to them. So
yeah, exactly.
Nothing's autonomous yet, and I worry when we get there because we're a shitty species. I'm afraid the first AI is not going to be like Chappie. It's going to be the one that takes us out.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm with Elon Musk and those guys. I'm like, yeah, we don't need to be making like machine killer robots for the battlefield and stuff like that because
probably don't do that. Hey,
in the off chance that they can take over. I mean, we've all watched The Terminator how many times? And
well, yeah, exactly.
Let's not go there, people, please.
Yeah, shit. So, how's the schooling situation there for your kids?
Well, the school that we send them to is a publicly funded charter school. So, I mean, they have only a certain amount of students they allow in every year. You have to go in for the lottery if you don't have somebody that's a family there. I mean, we would go to public schools, but the ones that were attached to the neighborhood that we're in are notoriously like underfunded. They have way too many kids in the classes, and I'm glad that we make enough that we can send them off to like a charter school. So it's like a mixture between they get paid through state funding, but at the same time we also have to volunteer a lot. We have to put in some money to pay for all the supplies and stuff like that, and so. I mean, the school that they go to is really nice, and we're looking on uprooting from where we are to move to a different place because when it comes to be time for them to go to like junior high and high school, we, of course, as parents, you're going to do everything you can to make sure they get into the best opportunity they can get. You know, whether they squander that or not is another thing completely. I've already told them not paying for their college,
right?
Because I had my dad pay for my college, and I ended up dropping out in like third year.
Oh, and yeah.
So. I mean, I got my associates and then I kept changing my major. So it just never sunk in what the hell I wanted to do with my life. And I do the computer job as a Clark Kent job. You know, I would rather be doing the Superman stuff, but you know,
right.
Not in the cards just yet. I mean, very, very few in our line of what we do, Corey, and you know this as well as I do, get to actually live off of what they do. And so,
oh yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can't make a killing on YouTube anymore because they demonetize everything. You can't make too many like atheist skeptic podcasts because they're starting to be a swing away from those kind of people. And it's just like, man, it's like hit the wrong market at the wrong time. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's all like based on market. We talk about what we want to talk about, of course, but I'm not trying to be cynical about the whole thing because I fucking love what I do. But it's just like, you know, as well as I do that you have to put in years and years before that even becomes something that pays for itself.
And even then it still doesn't.
Oh, because like this last year and a half, I've sunk probably about $4,000 or $5,000 into different computers that I wanted to have to help the thing along. And it's like, that's not coming out of my family budget. That's not coming out of the show budget. That's coming out of my veins. I pay for it with my making plasma. And it's just like,
yeah, that's right.
It's extreme for some folks out there, but if you got the veins for it, it's like just an hour's worth of sitting on the couch, you know, if you're not bothered by it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We're schooling. So sorry, I blueberried myself there.
That's fine. It's
they're going to a nice elementary school. They're doing good grades. And I like the fact that they have a smaller class size when they're this young, because it gives them a chance to actually learn like from their teachers. I mean, once you get into junior high and high school, you can have as big of a class as you want, as long as they're able to be self-sufficient when it comes to looking things up on their own or studying things and stuff.
Yeah.
I think just fine. But it's a matter of, we want them to get some of the best schooling you can get. And, every place that you live has, that's the I wouldn't say the poor kids school, but, that's usually the more crime ridden school or kind of something like that. And so you, of course, want your kid to go to the house, the school on top of the hill where all the rich people send their kids and everything, even though they might not fit in quite so well there, because we're working class just like everybody else around here.
Right.
But it's the dream. But just the thought of having to sell a house and get a new one just fills me with so much like I'm like, just the anxiety of it all. I'm like, oh God, no, I just barely got this one 10 years ago.
I had to sell my house after my divorce, and then it took me 3 or 4 years of getting things back in order, and then still my current girlfriend and I still had to work the system a bit to get our new house. Like, it's a giant pain in the ass.
I can imagine. And we're not even on the cusp of divorce or anything like that. So I can
right.
We got all our shit in order, and we've put in like 10 years of equity into this house, and it's like we should be able to get something out of it. But the fact of, if we want to build somewhere, we're going to have to vacate this place while we sell it, live in an apartment somewhere. And it's just like, fuck, that's not something I'm looking forward to. It's just, but that's my privilege showing through that I can actually afford that kind of thing. And I'm not trying to brag or anything like that. It's just one of those things where I live in a time, and I've worked to the point where I can be able to talk about these kind of things. And surely I'm not the only one,
No, that's right. I think actually, like, our generation, our age category, if we get even a decent start, then we can have things well adjusted by the time we're our age. Like, like if I had
30s where it's like, okay, this is middle-aged stuff now, guys.
Yeah, that's right. Like, if I had not gotten divorced, I would own a house. I would be well established in my income and my life, and I would have a savings account.
I finally got one of those started. I'm like, wow, what is it like to have just money?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Stuck away somewhere. It's like, and when Christmas rolls around, that like, what do you want for Christmas? You're like, I've already got everything I need. It's just not where you're the starving college student where you're like, fuck, I need a new laptop, or I need rent.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
yeah, rent. That was something that was good to have.
I need food and I need dishes, Yeah, and at that time we didn't have an IKEA.
Yeah, shit. So, I guess, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? We don't have a lot of time left, but we can.
I don't know. We've run the gamut today. We've hit just about everything. Let's see, music, movies, television. No, didn't talk. No, I'm not going to talk television because you guys have the see. I mean, I could say, I used to watch is Red Green a thing that still was a thing in Canada, or was that only America? I don't know.
No, that was definitely a thing up here.
Okay.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing. Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know, man. What does the future hold for people like us? I
don't know. Hey?
There's. I want to start doing the convention circuit and start hitting places up so you can sell the show to more people. But I mean,
yeah. And
I've got books in the works that I want to work on, but it's just a matter of finding the time to do that. And you're like, fuck, this is a lot of work.
Do you do much writing?
Yeah, when I was talking about the blog that I have, Watch, Play, Read, I started that out just kind of as like a joke at first. The original name of the website was Media Whore Network because I was just like, why not? I am a media whore. And I wrote probably about 2,000 or 3,000 articles there.
Oh, geez.
I mean, it was just mainly news stuff or, quick things that I'd talk about, or I'd put out a post like, hey, here's the music. Here's your morning cup of metal, put out a video from YouTube. Nice. And then I went from that to doing just the podcast stuff. So, and when I do the show, you know how well it is. If you're any kind of modicum of successful podcast, you have to have like a list of stuff that you're going to talk about, whether it be something that's actually scripted, which sometimes I do, or you have, you know, just the news that you want to do and you highlight the parts that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I do plenty of writing. Like whenever I do a rant on the show, I write that out and go over it about 20 times before you actually get the final product. And even when you're reading it, sometimes you have to stop. You're like, fuck, I said that wrong. And like, let me go back. And you know, I've started working on a book that I hope to have finished by middle of next year, I would think, where I'm talking about the experiences of, you know, learning how to use your empathy, learning how to develop it, because there's a lot of the time that I was one of those guys that was heavily into the YouTube atheism scene and used to watch all the TJ Kirk stuff, used to watch Sargon of Akkad and all that stuff. And I was like, and then it was really when they started talking about the whole MGTOW thing and the red pilling and stuff like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck is this stuff? You know, it started to get to be a little bit too hyper real. It's like you guys are being too self-aware of stuff that doesn't like pertain to you. And it's like, why should you care? If you're a guy, why should you care about abortion rights for, you know, like, why are you against abortion? Like, you're not the one getting them and stuff like that. And it's just like, I started to develop the feminism muscle a little bit, because I used to be laughing at the people that were against feminism. I'm like, yeah. And being a white guy is I'm being oppressed because I'm a white guy, and all these people want special treatment and stuff like that. And it's like, man, yeah, I need to. I finally learned how to see my way out of that bullshit. Yeah, and so I'm just making a book that, you know, just random musings that I'm talking about. Probably most of the stuff we've talked about today, I'll put into there because, you know, it's stories of my life and how I came out of that kind of shit. And so I've got about 9,000 or 10,000 words on it so far, and I think I don't even know what the cusp is that you have to be able to publish it. I mean,
I'm not sure.
I'm sure you could stop at like 10,000 and be like, here's a small book. But I'm like, no, if I'm going to make people buy something, I want it to be substantial and weighty. I want it to be something they have on
right.
something, you know? Yeah. But even like, who knows? I'll just self-publish it. I don't care if it gets popular or not. It's just,
well, that's the thing that can actually be done now, right? Is self-publishing. Yeah. So.
Well, Kyle on my show, he started writing down the stories that he was making up for his kids for like bedtime stories.
Oh, nice.
And 4 volumes of them, like coming out, like I think later this upcoming year, where he's going to self-publish there. And it's just like, good for you, man. I mean, he's one of those guys that actually takes part in like NaNoWriMo every November. And so
nice.
National Write a novel month or something like that. It's just where you spend from November 1st until the end of it trying to write a novel. And I'm like, wow, you guys go ahead, man. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
But then again, if I had the time, I probably wouldn't do it anyway, because I'd be, you know, like, oh, well, why am I writing a novel about something that I'm not even talking about? Like, I have a podcast, so therefore I feel like people want to hear what I have to say, you know?
Yeah. I should be talking about this.
That's a weird thing to be getting used to also, is like people noticing whenever you do stuff. It's like they care about what you say, and it's like,
yeah.
And like, why are you following what I'm saying? I mainly just talk into the mic and make jokes, you know? It's like,
yeah. Well, I'm lucky. Not a lot of people still follow me, so I don't have to get that used to it yet.
Well, we set up like you guys have a discussion group and we have one as well. Yeah. And it's funny for people to like at me on Twitter, or they'll start writing in the discussion group about something we said on the show, and they'll be like, yeah, that was really funny. I'm like, was it? Yeah, right. My friends and having a couple of beers, I didn't think it was that good of a thing to say. I've never been quoted by anybody on anything yet, but I probably will never get there, because nothing I say is ever that, you know, that important or that inclusive that need to actually quote it to their friends about.
I never think that the things I'm saying are that original. Everybody's already said it way better. I'm just repeating it.
It's like they say about all the good music has been written. It's just somebody else has been taking their own turn with it or something like
that. Yeah, that's right.
That's just like everything I do on the podcast. Like I listen to a shitload of atheist shows out there, including yours. And so like whenever I hear a thing come up, I'm like, oh yeah, we talked about this week too, or we hit that last week. And I'm like, I want to hear what their take is. And surprisingly, it's probably a lot of the same stuff. Just,
yeah.
It's funny, but I never get bored of it. That's the fun thing.
Yeah.
Though it does make me feel good whenever you feel like you scooped somebody, like the episode comes out on Monday and like theirs doesn't come out. Yeah, I had 4 days on top of you guys,
That's the trouble with actually doing our show every 2 weeks is because like I can find an article, research it, write out my points, and the next thing I know, 3 other shows have covered it already. And I'm like, oh, out the window. That's no good anymore.
Nobody wants to hear that now.
Yeah. That psychic vampire thing that was going around, that happened on that one. Like, multiple shows covered it, and I just was like, okay, I guess I won't even bother.
It's so funny. So it's like the shit that they sell at Goop. It's just like, how in good conscience could you sell that? And at the same time, B, how stupid could a consumer be to actually buy that thing? It's like,
yeah, that's right.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
Yeah.
Let them spend their money on whatever stupid product they want to. I mean, as long as they don't try to come after me and my stupid products, don't come for my microphone. No. I didn't need this. Right. I just wanted it,
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
I don't need the jade egg for my vagina. I just want one, Like,
I guess. Spend your money, yeah.
Capitalism, right?
Fuck. That's a whole other topic.
Without going into the rabbit hole of our own show stuff that we talk about all the
time. Yeah, for sure. Well, why don't we plug your stuff?
Hey, you guys can find me at UtahOutcast.com. You can find us on YouTube / Utah Outcasts. I think you can find us as well. We've got like 950 videos I think we've got up there.
Nice.
I did the math today. I'm like, every video every day makes like 0.0006 cents.
Nice.
It's saddening that you put so much work into it, but it's one of those things where you spend time doing it, and hopefully, in the returns will happen later.
Someday.
Let's see. Mainly at Utah Outcasts. You can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/Utah Outcasts. I mean, I used to do Instagram stuff. I haven't had time for it. The Facebook group doesn't get much except for my auto-published stuff that comes out through Hootsuite. I mean, if you hit me on Twitter, I'm guaranteed to write you back or at least talk to you, because that seems to be a more fun way of getting in contact with people. And now that they've doubled the character limit, it's like, fuck, I don't know what to do with all this extra space. And so I'm so used to
actually get a complete thought out and still have space.
Now what? And you can write like, this needs more letters, type it out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, just about anything. If you just Google Utah Outcast, it'll come up with the show. And I do all the social media. I do all the publishing and stuff like that. Kyle and Felicia, they do stuff as well, but most of their stuff is, come to the show with some stuff they want to talk about, but they don't really have the keys to the kingdom as to say, really. So, but yeah, just find me there. I'm always available, and I'm pretty much Monday through Friday available in the evenings because I'm at work. So, and work's pretty good about not being assholes about using social media. So
yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for chatting with me. It was a lot of fun.
I've had a lot of fun. We should do stuff like this more often instead of talking about the shit that we have to talk about and talk about the stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right. Spend a little time just bullshitting.
And somebody that's however many thousand miles away.
Yeah, that's right. Cool.
I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been a lot of fun.
I appreciate you coming. Have a good one, man.
See you later.
Bet. Bye.
We could just go home right now, or maybe
All right, that's it for the interview. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Skeptic Voices, the podcast for getting to know the people in our community. I want to thank X for joining me, and I want to apologize for getting this one out late. I wanted to have it done for December and then have another one for January, but one of my interviews got canceled and I got too busy to book another one, so this got pushed back. You can find more from X at UtahOutcasts.com or by following the Utah Outcasts on Facebook or Twitter. I'm not sure who my next interview is going to be for Skeptic Voices, but this is probably getting pushed to every second month so that I can focus on time with my family and the quality of my many other projects. Keep an eye on the Brainstorm Facebook page and for updates and new episodes. I think that's everything. So for everything else, you can email me at mail@brainstormblog.net. If you want to hear more of these, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. I highly recommend using BeyondPod, where you can just search for your favorite Brainstorm-related project. You can follow Skeptic Voices, The Skeptic Studio, Shift to Reason Radio, or read broadcasts of the Hardcore Skeptic Examines on your regular Brainstorm podcast feed, or you can follow each show on its own. I'd love it if you could go and rate all my various podcasts and give me a review on Apple Podcasts, Facebook, or anywhere else that you rate things, and share the hell out of the shows. You can check out the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com or on Spreaker under Brainstorm Podcast or Skeptic Voices. These episodes will eventually be up on our main website as well, brainstormblog.net. Thanks to our financial supporters, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Lachlan, Lisa, Magnus, Michael, Nathan, Positively Skeptical, Rob, Stephanie, Will, Bassett, and the Utah Outcasts. If you want to join their ranks and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. You can join us live every second week when we broadcast live on Spreaker. You can find us at brainstormradio.net or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcatcher, which I already mentioned. We always have new content coming out, and you can help support our attempt at a conference by going to gofundme.com/shift-2-reason-conference-2018 and by donating whatever amount you want. We're at $900 now, so we're getting closer and closer to that halfway mark. I think that's everything. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters, and so do people.
Here's to us.